issues reported on leading media outlets across the world. A lively panel of journalists with comprehensive knowledge in all fields of endeavor, be it politics, health, business, sports, entertainment, information, communication technology, gender, law, international affairs and diplomacy, and a host of others will objectively dissect the matter of contention. On Reporters Roundtable, fairness, objectivity, factuality, and non-partisanship is our hallmark. It's the Double RT Show with Rebecca Ewa. This and every other Thursday from 10 to 12 GMT. Make a date with us. The Reporters Roundtable, all angles, all sides.
Right, a warm welcome to the program. My name is Rebecca Ewa, and there has been persistent call for the ban of second-hand clothing in the country, especially ones with close contact with the body. The business, according to critics, isn't just destroying jobs, but has had a negative impact on the Ghanaian culture and tradition. Dealers, however, insist their business contributes greatly to the national kitty while creating employment. Oscar Ankomah is the national patron for the Used Clothing Dealers Association. Together with some journalists, we will deal with the various matters, including retrieval of state assets and national service, that is, if there is more time. We'll treat you to a video, and when we come back, we'll tackle the issues. Cotton is a major cash crop cultivated in most parts of the world, including Ghana. As a form of employment and livelihood, farmers, mostly in the three northern regions, engage in the production of the crop. For instance, while Ghana only managed to produce 36,000 metric tons of seed cotton in 2006 and 2007, Burkina Faso produced a colossal 700,000 metric tons. Textile industries consume up to 80% of what is produced. Unfortunately, in the case of Africa, exports of raw cotton are occasioned by an absence of any significant domestic textile industries to add value to cotton grown by numerous small farm holders and the need to earn foreign exchange. The few still operating in the industry now depend heavily on raw material imports and have to fend off competition from cheap imported textiles. The effect is that the booming textile industry in the past is now a pale shadow of itself. The textile industry in Ghana once employed about 25,000 workers. Most of these companies produced high-quality materials, designs, and very good textile brands, which sold so well on the local market as well as other markets in West Africa. Wax prints produced by these companies were in high demand on the Ghanaian market because they are used in making traditional apparels like the kaba and other exquisite wares. The industry contributed significantly to the country's gross domestic product. In recent times, the industry has gone through some difficult times, resulting in shutting down of the production lines of most of the companies. Some of the companies which are still operating are believed to be importing grey baft and semi-finished bleached cloth for printing in Ghana. This is a local garment manufacturing company in Accra that employs some 600 Ghanaians. By its own projections, the anticipation is that the number of employees should rise to 1,000 or more in the years ahead. Its challenges include lack of space at its present factory location and inadequate capital injection. However, this garment company intends to establish a fabric knitting and finishing unit to supply to the West African market. Campaigning for transformation in the structure of the national economy is said to be a cardinal principle on the way forward to promote made in Ghana goods. This is to grow industry and conserve foreign exchange. Causes of the collapse of the textile industry include the influx of textile products from other countries. These textiles are relatively cheaper compared to those produced in Ghana.
When we talk about African as made in Ghana goods, I think the main problem you're having is the pirating. We're not asking them not to, but at least copying our designs and producing them cheaper. I think that's why the government has to do something about it. And number two, if our industries could be helped out with their customs, I mean, reducing their import duties on some of the products is going to go a long way. One, we have to patronize our goods from the offices. When you come to Ghana, we try to copy. And I think this should be a point for any government to come on. We should use our textiles. Something like GTP is one of the fantastic garments you could ever get. Their quality is good. We have fantastic colors. I mean, everything about it is very unique. So I don't see why we shouldn't portray our own fabrics and then end up portraying other people's style. It doesn't go that way, but I think the government should do something about it. If it can be a policy that every company in Ghana should use the African wear, specifically made in Ghana goods, I think it's going to help us.
I see a friend to maybe high target. We are partners now. The same, like almost so designs. Until once any panel banner so to maybe design bit is a GTP, a Sobariana, Feliciana, something. So the price in a manner, Okonoko who the same thing. Na price no format. I was like be a 75 or 80 cedis. Okonoko 40 cedis and 35 cedis. Design here the same thing, but the quality na mostly no be a new panya how are the quality here but we only to mommy as GTP from bare 50 years in India. The only GTP say GTP.
I prefer the force to the Ghanaian textiles because the Ghanaian textile is very expensive compared to the force. The force is sometimes when you get it, it's one in town. You will not see other people wearing it, but the Ghanaian textiles, everybody wear it. And you see this Kayayo people, sometimes the way they even make the clothes, when you see it, it doesn't appeal to you to even buy it.
Another source of worry is that Ghana has become a dumping ground for foreign cast-offs, which is negatively impacting the Ghanaian textile industry. Thousands of tons of unwanted clothes in Europe are given to charity shops every year, but somehow most of them don't get to their intended destinations in the local charity shops. So the question is, where do they actually go?
Star of Ghana, For the job, it starts from port. An agent will give me a permit. I will go inside and load. I will scan, and then after scanning, I will go and park at the scan park, and then he will work on it. After he has finished, then I will drive to this place. That is how he starts from home. As an importer, and then as a driver, and then an agent has given you a load. The only thing after loading is to bring the goods to the destination place. Because as a driver, if agent load me, I can't take the load into any place or to go and park in it after loading. I have to come straight to the importer's place. But after we have come here, AMA will come and then say we don't have to park double. We don't have to park double. If we park double, they will come and tow our cars to their office for us to go and pay. So I have to come here, find a place to park, not actually the place where I'm going to offload the goods. Find a place to park, and then maybe Wednesday evening I'll come and then park, put it at the double parking. Before the following day, Thursday morning, they will offload the goods. So it's a lot of, stress to us.
It is 12 a.m. and like shepherds watch their flock by night, I am at the Kan-Dapaah market where containers full of used clothing have arrived from the port and the importers are offloading. For a 40-feet container or a 20-feet container that houses about 450 bales of clothing, you will require a minimum of 5 to 7 men to offload the goods for a fee. These goods are patronized by traders from our neighboring countries such as Cote d'Ivoire and Burkina Faso. Other traders in this country also come in and sleep over so that they could get the best of the items around this time.
No matter imported one, you actually stock taking near checking items for items. You might buy. Yeah.
And Sana, how do you do it? Do you itemize it? Do you sort it out?
It's all classified using acronyms. Yeah, so like the ladies' t-shirt will be classified as like LPTS, ladies' t-shirt. So with all these acronyms, you have like 30 to 35 or 40 acronyms. You have to learn all, and then at the end, you check for item by item.
How do you arrange the things so that when people come to buy, they will know that these are ladies' shirts, these are jackets, and these are bed sheets and all of that? How do you arrange them, or how do you put them down?
Okay, before it comes, you have to have a layout. Like, you're having like 450 bills. In that, you have ladies' t-shirts like 30. So with that minimum space that you have, say, at the end of the day, so packet, ladies t-shirt 30 wahasi, male t-shirt 40 wahasi, and original shorts, nika, ebia 12 wahasi. So with that, you should be able to know, yeah, based on the total quantity that you
number one.
Like baby rabbit. Ladies' toilet blouse. Toilet blouse. Okay, I was saying I can be maybe I will never back to it. Packing list. If you was I will give in a bag. We are no what ladies' t-shirt. We are not what sending packing list. I was no one to say. We pass, I didn't show any Ladies t-shirt blouse.
Ghana, we now have freedom.
My name is Rebecca Ewa. Keep watching the Reporters Roundtable on GBC24 this and every other Thursday. All right, welcome back to the studios, and you can get interactive with us on 02444754222. We've heard your cry. There are people who sent me email, others sent me Facebook messages. They wanted us to our number, we should use it on WhatsApp, and thankfully we now have WhatsApp, so majority of the people can get through to us. So those were excerpts of a 1-hour documentary titled The Bled Identity, talking about Ghana's textile industry and how foreign cast-off has some way impinged on this all-important sector and the issues therein. Here we have Mr. Oscar Ankomah, who is the National Patron for the Used Clothing Dealers Association, in here in the studio, because they have issues as well. They are saying that they are not the cause of the collapse of the textile industry, so we will have his take here in the studio. In here too, I have Elvis Dako. Elvis Dako is with the Finder newspaper, and at my extreme left is Duke Tego. Duke Tego is with the Insight newspaper. Mr. Ankomah, welcome. Let me start with you on this issue of second-hand clothing business and the accusations being made by the textile industry that you are edging out their business. In your own assessment, I know that the used clothing business has come to help, but in your own assessment, should it take away our Africanness?
Really, second-hand clothing, as we have already said, it's helping the nation very much, as it has generated a lot of employment, and it has given us a lot of taxes. I mean, if we look at the taxes that we paid at the ports and other resources, you know, we can never do away with second-hand clothing in Ghana. So, if one says second-hand clothing is I mean, something that we should discuss about it, I personally don't agree in any other way, because if we look at the textile or cotton industry as we are talking about, you know, it has been there for quite a long time. Even during the generation, even when I was born, the missionaries were denoting second-hand clothing for free before the textile industry came to the assistance. Over there, that time, it was very lucrative, and everybody was, I mean, patronizing. How come right now there's people complaining about second-hand clothing killing the textile industry? That is what we should find out, the causes. And if you say it's the second-hand clothing, as I've said, I don't agree with you. One, we look at how the textile industry is operating, right? If we look at how they get their raw materials, how the government is able to assist the producers to provide raw materials for the textile industries. Most of these textile companies import their raw materials. And when it happens like that, it's very, very expensive. very expensive. And look at, I mean, there are lots of factors that contribute
so
to the...
indirectly, you're saying the second-hand clothing business is not that really impacting negatively on the textile industry?
It's never impacting any negatively affect the textile industry.
Okay, but what do you make of the call for the ban of second-hand clothing, especially with the ones that have close contact with the body?
In fact, there is no scientific proof that any cloth which has close contact with the body has any virus or anything of the sort. There is no scientific proof. It's just because sometimes the cotton industry doesn't find solution to their problem. That is why they are making that allegation. So if one says this particular item has some virus or anything, because if we look at issues or how we bring in the goods, any container that comes from overseas is being backed by certificate of fumigation. It means it has gone through the process, being fumigated before it's being exported to Ghana. So there is no virus. And I tell you, if the virus that travels through the human body, some doesn't last for seconds.
Okay, Elvis, let me come to you. What do you make of us as Ghanaians? Are we suffering an identity crisis in relation to what we were? As the title of the story is, blurred identity. We do not know where we fall. Are we foreigners or we are true Africans? Because as Dr. Oscar Ankomah said, our Africanness should not be taken away. And one aspect of our Africanness boils on what we were as a people.
And that, what you talk blurred identity, I really don't get what you mean by we are living in a world, we say we are in a global environment. And our cultural identity is important because we all come from cultural environments. But if we want to focus the culture on what we wear, the question is it what we wear, how it is sewn, or what it is made of that we are talking about cultural identity? Because most of the African wear that today we all say we wear, we call African wear. When you go to it, you realize that even the material was produced in somebody's country. It is just sewn or put together in a way that it looks like, oh, this is a Ghanaian style or design of what clothes that we wear. So when we are talking about it, we should be careful how we want to link this to a cultural identity. Yes, you wear a certain particular of dress, maybe batakari or something, but no, yeah, this one shows that you are a Ghanaian, but you are a Ghanaian for a particular part of the country. So when we are talking about the cultural identity and all those things, I think that we should also go into it and be critical of some of these things, because if it is the style and the way it is sewn or how the material looks like, does it mean that the material is made by you, or the material can be made from anywhere in the world, but the way it is sewn and the style that you are talking about, or which? So we have to be careful and situate the whole thing into the right perspective. In terms of the issue of used clothing and the textile industry, yeah, it is true that the used clothing business may be having some impact on the textile industry, but the question is, how is this happening? We are a country, if you sign trade policies that allow us to bring in anything and open our borders to everything, then we should accept that everything will come in. Secondly, the question is, why will I go and buy a new shirt in store, or go to a Ghanaian designer and say, oh, I want this shirt sewn for me, and it tells me that, oh, it is 70 Ghana, it is 100, and it is dress I want to wear, it is something I want to wear anyway. But if I go to maybe sometimes not even necessarily second hand, but you may even go to a shop where the thing is not made in Ghana but imported for sale, and the price over there is cheaper than the one you are asking the local Ghanaian designer to make for you. And always we all say it is simple. Every decision to buy is an economic decision. When I have 10 cedi and I go to the market, I want to buy as much as quality goods as I can with that money. So if the quality of the material available, whether it is imported or local, the most important thing I will be looking at is, if they are of the same quality, what about price? And the price will influence my decision which of the two I want to buy. So we should always look at it. We are a developing country with many people in abject poverty. We know the poverty levels in Ghana. If we are looking at the cost of goods or clothing that is actually made in Ghana, the question we should also be asking ourselves is, how many of our own people can even afford to buy those clothes at the prices at which they are selling? So if your people cannot buy what you are making in your own country, the question is, how do you expect them to survive? They will go for the options available. So if the option available is a used clothing and the person's financial status show that you can afford that one, the person will definitely go for it. So it is not, you see, when we talk about buy made in Ghana, it is important. I support it 100% and I'm an advocate for it. But it is also obvious that the cost of production in this country has put the price of a lot of things that are made in this country beyond the ordinary Ghanaian. So if the cost of what is made in Ghana is beyond the ordinary Ghanaian, how do you expect the ordinary Ghanaian to buy made in Ghana? So it should be a holistic approach to addressing the problem, not only trying to point accusing fingers at a particular just one cause. Maybe that is even in the middle of the whole problem. We should look at the root causes of the problem, try as much as possible as a country to fix the root causes. When we fix those root causes, then at the end of the day, the other causes will be solved. But if we cannot, and we think that the Ghanaian going to the market, because he is so patriotic, he should just buy made in Ghana irrespective of the cost, it will just be a talk shop. Because if the person even imported the things, paid even higher duties, but the thing remained cheaper than what is made in Ghana, my sister, it is obvious that in a developing country like Ghana, where a lot of people have problems or earn less, or what they earn is not even enough to just take care of what they eat, it will be difficult for such people to say, I'm buying made in Ghana because I'm patriotic, because the means to do so is not there. So we as a people should look at the cost of production in our country, no matter what it is, whether it is food or clothing, whatever it is. The most important thing that will determine whether a Ghanaian buys a Ghanaian product will be the cost at which the product is selling.
Okay, Duke, do you agree to some extent with Elvis, to the extent that we shouldn't just put the blame on one particular sector, because there are issues regarding, let's say, the fortunes of Ghana cotton industry in the past? There have been challenges, internal and external factors, and looking at the fact that the second-hand clothing business also is a whole chain that creates employment for a number of people.
Well, I would like to start by saying that the cultural revolution that has taken place in many parts of the world has actually helped so much in the restructuring of many societies. And clothing are just one part of it, you understand? When you go to the international market, for instance, we talk about carpets. There are some carpets that people are scrambling to buy because of what they are made of, because of the ingenuity, because of the designs, and because it means a lot to people. And this is what I believe that we are making efforts at trying to promote here in Ghana. But as Elvis has also said very rightly, we also have a situation where our society, or let's say the system that we currently practice here in Ghana, promotes globalization. And the globalization, all we are saying is that any businessman from anywhere in the world can just troop into Ghana, set up a company, and then the person is into business. And there's nothing that prevents the person from bringing in second-hand clothing to come and sell. And how many of our people actually are in the forefront of actually leading in this business? For all they care, they are able to make enough revenue from the purchase or for the supply of this particular material to make a living. Now, I think that we should be more interested in how government itself facilitates this to take place. You understand? As Elvis has rightly said, what have we done to boost up production of local textiles in order that we can have more of this material on the market at prices where the ordinary Ghanaians can purchase so and where? You understand? We haven't done that. And all the time, we believe that by some magic, the private sector in Ghana will be made to realize that they have a responsibility to help build Ghana. It will never happen. it takes government's own effort. Government must lead the way in deciding that this is what we want to do. The production of textiles are only one of them. We can talk about several others. We talk about, for instance, the research institute at Mampong, which is producing I think that the Mampong Research Institute is producing some of the best soaps you can find anywhere in Africa. These soaps are so good that it's been acclaimed everywhere in the world. But they don't produce them on high scales. And why don't they do so? Because there are some private individuals who decide that it's better to import these soaps into our country, sell them on the market to make mega profits. And therefore, our own effort at actually reorganizing our society to produce what we need is not there. And therefore, I think that we shouldn't just limit this discussion to second-hand clothing. It's very important. And we can't also deny the fact that many of our people find them affordable. Go to the ministries. That is what the ministers wear. I wonder how many ministers will actually decide that for the rest of their lives, they are going to dedicate it to just wearing made in Ghana clothes. I know a few ministers who are making a conscious effort, and I can mention some of them. But is it a policy which is being promoted as a result of government's own effort at helping, for instance, the production of cotton? So that cotton production is made much easier, much cheaper, so that many Ghanaians can equally go into that industry, produce the cotton for the textiles industry, and therefore they don't have to import some of the raw materials that are used in that sector. These are issues that government is the one which must decide on. We can't leave this for individuals to do. If we do, then we can't complain when we have the influx of second-hand clothing. We have to resolve these problems, and it's very important we do it.
Mr. Ankomah, let me come back to you. Do your goods go through the ports?
Yes.
And how does it help the nation as a whole?
Really, when we import the goods, we clear it through the port, and we have to pay the customs duties as usual, like any other import, right? And to continue your this thing by saying how it helps the nation, in fact, it creates a lot of employment. So
if you say you pay your import duties, is that to say that then it means the country has endorsed it? Because
really?
Okay.
But there is no law in Ghana that bans import of second-hand.
Okay.
I mean, there is no law that, as Elvis has said, no law bans used clothing. Okay. So, I mean, we import through the customs and clear it through the distance and pay all the necessary taxes. And in fact, after that, when you ask me about how it helps, that's why I would say it creates a lot of employment, right? From the port to the shop or the outlet where the goods are to be cleared, right? We have the drivers, and when it comes to, we have casual laborers. After that, I mean, it has to go through a lot of stages before it goes to the consumer. So with all this, I mean, employment is being generated. And also, as we earlier said, as Elvis said, it's very affordability, quality-wise, and also stylish.
So you can have different styles as and when you want. Obviously, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, but
Duke, who wants to come first?
I think we must also realize that in spite of the concerns that we all have about our interest in wanting to promote made in Ghana goods, textiles, furniture, and several others, these things must be done, and they must take place because of a policy direction which involves not just the policy maker who sits in one office, drafts a document, gradually passes through parliament, and that is what happens. And then in the end, you find out that although we have a policy, it is not really resolving the problem. We have stakeholders in the textile industry. I know there has been engagement with them severally. Some of them are participated in very actively. Campaigns have been waged about the influx of foreign textiles. And in fact, if you care to know, some of the textiles that we have on the market are pirated products. You understand? Some of the textiles from the Kozomo Textiles Company Limited are actually printed in China. And they pass through our borders and they come and mix with our own, produced ones here in Ghana. And when it happens that way, first and foremost, the ingenuity and the designs have been stolen. The workers that produce these things are not here in our country, so jobs were created elsewhere. And all of these are what sum up to the problems that is faced by the textiles industry. And therefore, it is my hope that the new regime, led by Nana Akufo-Addo and the trade minister and all others concerned, if they are really interested in the promotion of what majority of Ghanaians are really clamoring for, if they are really interested in helping to organize this particular sector to ensure that we create more jobs, to ensure that majority of Ghanaians find pride in the kinds of things that we produce here in our country, then we cannot shed the responsibility. We must stand firm and put in place the needed measures to rescue all of these problems that we are talking about. Okay. And unfortunately, we have repeated them over and over again. I'll be surprised if GTV hasn't done extensive discussions on this matter. But we always come back to them year in, year out, which means that the problems are not being resolved. And why are they not being resolved? Because we are not sincere in our approach to the matter. And unfortunately, all the policymakers are actually pro this globalization agenda. How many of them are really concerned about helping farmers to really produce more cotton, you understand, at cheaper prices for the textile industry? These are things we have to do.
Okay, I think we have all agreed that the second-hand business is just one aspect of what the textile industry is complaining of, and necessarily it is not that which is impinging negatively on their. Elvis, I'll come back to you. I know you wanted to react to something, but Mr. Ankomah, how are your imports organized, and what are the challenges in there? Is the business all that rosy? Because if you tell me you pay import duties, it comes through the port, you have to follow up through to all the chains that you have talked about.
Yeah, under the trade liberalization, I mean, we do the import as any other commodities which is being brought into the country through the port, as I've already said. But I mean, in our business, as we are saying, it's not all that rosy in the sense that some of the importers just sit by the comfort of their office and make orders, and through the banks they transfer their money, whatever. Some of the goods come without the necessary I mean documentation. Some too come with shortage of bills or weight, and what we do is that it is being taxed according to the weight or the price, whichever is higher. That's what the customs charges. So when it comes like that and you are underweight, for instance, you need to pay the taxes. If not, you have to re-examine it, because some of the documents has to be processed before the goods arrive. Yes, so that it will be cleared in a shorter time. So when all things is being paid, and later on discovered that it is not the right weight, you have already paid that duty, and you know how to, retrieve money from the government. It's going to be a whole lot of things. So you have to forget. Can you
guarantee that? Okay, I've called for this number of imports, and maybe you called for only shirts. You get maybe very good ones as you wish.
Yes, you cannot guarantee, because if you are in Ghana and you order, unless you go there and supervise for yourself, other than that, you cannot guarantee on that issue. But when you deal with a constant or a very good supplier, that means, he's going to look after you and he will take care of you, because it's just a routine business, and all the time he will have to satisfy you so that you come back again. But if, for instance, you just approach the person through some phones and this thing, he doesn't care whether you come back or not. So he do whatever he does. Once he gets his money, that's it. And sometimes some of these companies that we contact is even going bankruptcy. Wow. Yes, the bank would transfer the money, all right, but the goods will never come. Right now they've got the money, So it's not all that rosy as we are thinking about. And moreover, too, when the good comes and it's not up to the standard that you desire or request, the customers who purchase the goods will come and harass you, come and complain to you, but you cannot complain too much unless you, negotiate with him in good terms before he can, reimburse you or something of the sort. But most cases, companies who that doesn't stay for long, and sometimes they go on bankruptcy. You know, in developed countries, one day somebody wake up and said, "I'm bankrupt," and that's the end of him. Yeah.
But sometime later last year, your association complained of high import duties. Can you share with us what has become of that?
Yes, the high import duties has occurred because of the the instability of the dollar. You know, we are in a country whereby everything that is being imported is paid in the foreign currency. Last week, for instance, the dollar was quoted as 4.27. This week is 4.30. So if we are to make some calculations, right, based on 4.27, and you do the same calculation based on 4.3, you know there's some differences. And if this can, will be well for us, then we have to see to it that the government or either the dollar is stabilized, or the government will give us a specific rate for the dollar for at least 6 months or 1 year, so that we can make our projections. Other than that, all the time we don't have any projection to do, in the sense that each week the dollar has to change. The dollar has to change, and apart from the custom duties that we paid, there are a lot of other taxes that is being hidden, that we have to pay all these taxes.
Like what and what?
We have to pay the national health insurance import. We have to pay ECOWAS levy. There are a lot of this thing, a lot. Yes. If I have my this thing, I would have quoted a lot, about 10 of taxes that we paid on imports.
So with that, are you saying you don't make profits?
Not all. As I told you, not all is rosy, okay, as we said. You see, some people comes into the business and you don't see them again. Why? Because they couldn't make anything. Yes.
Okay. Elvis, you as an economic reporter, talk of high import. You wanted a reaction to something that I don't know about, but you can chip it in. Talking of high import duties and how it impacts on businesses, not just the second-hand clothing, but in general terms. Moving forward, how would you want the economic situation as far as our currency is concerned to be stabilized, so that businesses can also be that comfortable to operate?
Stability. No business can plan with that stability.
Yeah.
Every business plans and is able to plan well because the factors that you look for to do business are stable. So you can know that in the next 6 months, I have this, the currency will be at this point, electricity will be available, this will be available, then you can have a projection. So in terms of stability of everything, it is very important for every business, whether it is currency fluctuation, whether it is power supply. Every business needs stability to be able to plan. So for that one, the economic managers must always look at it. But I think, as is said, in terms of policy as a country, some of these things that we come, it just take policy measures to address. People, I hear the time always we see them do. We have arrested so much Teslas on the market, pirated and imported. The question is, what are the border officials doing for these things that are pirated to get into this country? These are critical issues, because no matter what you do, if the border is not controlled, how do you get it in? The things get in, people will buy it, whether it is pirated or not. As I said, the decision is an economic one, and I must look at what I can to be able to buy. And it's not only about, as I said, it's not only about used clothing. You go on social media and see people advertising, "Oh, I saw suit for sale," and the price they offer you maybe 250, 300 per one. And you go to some distribution chains in this country, and you see suit of similar value on sale, and it is 150. So if a suit of a similar value, not a used clothing, brand new, is 150 in a distribution supermarket, and the Ghanaian who is showing the same sales is about 250, 300. They are all brand new. It's not about home use. I am the one going to buy. So why will I go and buy that of the Ghanaian, which is 250, 300, than the one that is a shop, which is also new, imported, but is 150 cedis. So the issues, as we talk about, if we don't plan as a country holistically to address some of these things, we will only complain. It's just like, okay, now somebody should come in Ghana and start manufacturing cars. Then the person should say, we should ban the import of home use cars because he is producing cars in Ghana. Simply because you are producing it, the home use aspect should be banned. How do you do it? It is so market forces should be allowed to determine the price of everything that we buy. But then government has critical roles to play in terms of responsibility. Why is it that the local textile industry is struggling? What are the factors? Where is the cotton industry in Ghana today that will provide, because that's the basis for every textile industry, to provide the raw materials that will be converted into the grape bafts and the yarns and the rest for them to be used to be able to generate some of these things. And at what cost? If textile industry is paying electricity bills that are far higher than an industry in America pays for electricity, how does that product that comes off of that company become competitive to what is manufactured in America? So we have to critically look at, if it is production, what are the factors of production? Which of the factors does government has a role to play to be able to make sure that it's affordable to industry, for industry to be able to produce at a competitive rate? If we don't do these things, then we will only be shouting because we are not addressing the root causes of the problem.
All right, I want us to be wrapping up soon on so that we go to the other verse. But Duke, in your view, do you think it will be ever possible to ban second-hand clothing in Ghana? Looking at the fact that there are some people, when there is a disaster in Ghana, they gather those goods and take it as a relief for such people. We take it to the orphanages and what have you.
But excuse me, I wear dress and I go to the village. I have a brother or an uncle there. After wearing for 1 year, we are of the same size. It fits him. I carry it and I go and give it to him. Will he reject it because I've used it before? No. It is on the issue of second hand. We have to be very careful. We'll because
that's an interesting thing. Let me take the thought of Duke. We'll come to Mr. Ankomah, then we wrap up.
A sudden ban of second-hand clothing will not be the way to go. The way to go immediately, because as we have all testified, people go into that industry first and foremost because they want to make a livelihood. You find them working by the roadside, sometimes carrying braziers. Braziers are even now, some of them are second-hand. All manner of body wears are all being, passed by on the streets. They are making a living out of them. I think what we need to do immediately must be to understand what the problem is. And this must involve a critical thinking, not just by one or two people put together to produce a document, but this must become a part of a national discourse. You understand? And you see, madam, I foresee greater problems coming in the future. You know, Ghana has gone to sign this economic partnership agreement with Europe. And if you should discuss the details of this agreement, I'm very sure that the issue of second-hand clothing will be the least we can talk about. Serious problems are coming. Very soon, we're going to have problems where companies in Europe can come and bid for government contracts here in Ghana. Traffic lights are now can be made by Europeans for us. Everything, government, the chairs government sits on, the minister will sit on in his office. A private company in Europe can come and bid for the contract, whilst we have the likes of Agowu and several others, Pogas, in Ghana here, who can produce them. These are the problems which are coming. And I would like to take advantage of this platform, and I'm very sure that we are all concerned about this, that we ask President Akufo-Addo to really take a long look at this economic partnership agreement so that we try and avoid the calamity which is coming to face our country. Right. It is going to create mass unemployment. It is going to scatter our society completely. And this is why I think we must act very quickly to rescue some of these things.
Right. Mr. Ankomah, moving forward, how do you envisage the second-hand clothing business? How do you envisage it? How do you hope it will become?
Really, I mean, every business has its ultimate, right? So this second-hand clothing, if there's a lot of boats in it, I mean, people in it are going to take over the textile industry, as we are saying. Because if we encourage the importers or the people in the second-hand clothing, they are mostly Ghanaians, and it's being done by Ghanaians. After, I mean, making money, they don't repatriate money to anywhere. They just invest it here. So you see a lot of people in the second-hand clothing in other business like transportation, hospitality industry, I mean, into factories like producing waters and other stuff. And very soon, I hope they will even take over the textile industry if the government is able to, I mean, put the necessary implementation on it.
Yes. For that one, I think everybody should be do his business, and how well you do it, I guess that will impact. Elvis, a quick one so that we...
Yeah, a quick one. It's obvious that Ghana is not a net importer of so many things. The most important thing we should be asking is, do we have an import substitution policy as a country that, okay, we are importing this thing, this percentage. In the next 10 years, by deliberate plans, we want to reduce the import by this percentage. So this is what we are doing to make sure that we produce to cut down that percentage within this. That is the critical thing we should be talking. All the European market, all of the hotels, they have a free open market. But one critical thing that makes sure that goods from places like Ghana and many places can't enter those markets is called standardization. They apply their standards so well. If the standards of Ghana says you can't bring in used clothing, we wouldn't have it, because your standards have said we don't need that in our country. So if we want to address some of these issues, import substitution policy is critical. How we apply standards, we have a Ghana standard, but what are the Ghanaian standards? There are so many things. If you ask what is Ghana's standards on this, you can't get it. For instance, it happened recently, we talk about this toxic diesel. We were importing that high toxic diesel until an NGO has to come and do a work, give us the report, and now we are all running helter-skelter. So we should look at two critical things: import substitution policy and standardization.
Right, import substitution and standardization. This one says, my name is Ohobori Maxwell. Your name, I hope I didn't massacre the name. I'm sorry, Maxwell. Maxwell says, this is a well-informed program and I want to contribute to it. The issue of high cost of production and the sales of Ghanaian products is something that needs to be discussed. Even locally made rice costs more than that of imported ones. So Ghanaians should also know how to weigh their prices once they are selling a product. Okay, thank you. Hi Becky, this is Reverend Champon of Ghana Blue Cross. This is a nice program, keep it up. Thank you, Reverend. Okay, thank you very much. This one says, sorry, but your message, it's not about second-hand clothing. Even the textile workers who receive clothes as a reward end up selling it and they don't even wear it. So don't put the blame on these second-hand people. They haven't done anything. After all, it is affordable. So if they can make their products affordable, we can also patronize it. Unfortunately, you didn't add your name. Thank you very much, Mr. Ankomah. Oscar Ankomah is the national patron for the Second-Hand Clothing Dealers Association. He will take leave of us, then we discuss the other various matters. We are back shortly. Join us via text or WhatsApp on 02444 It is the Reporters Roundtable, all angles from all sides.
Reporters Roundtable is a platform for journalists to express their views on topical issues objectively. This and every Thursday, you don't want to miss it.
Reporters Roundtable has has come at the time that it should. It's a very important program. We are now going to educate the public about our practice and hopefully inform them about the work we do and how we do it. Keep watching Reporters Roundtable.
Issues reported on leading media outlets across the world. A lively panel of journalists with comprehensive knowledge in all fields of endeavor, be it politics, health, business, sports, entertainment, information, communication technology, gender, law, international affairs and diplomacy, and a host of others will objectively dissect the matter of contention. On Reporters Roundtable, fairness, objectivity, factuality, and non-partisanship is our hallmark. It's the Double RT Show with Rebecca Ewa. This and every other Thursday from 10 to 12 GMT. Make a date with us. The Reporters Roundtable, all angles, all sides.
Right, welcome back. Now, the presidency has revealed that there are 208 cars unaccounted for at the Flagstaff House vehicle pool following the change in government on January 7, 2017. The Director of Communications at the Presidency, Eugene Arhin, indicated that this was detected after the assessment of 5 car modules in the car pool inventory of the Flagstaff House. Government has already set up a task force with a mandate of retrieving state assets unlawfully being held by individuals. This was contained in a statement by the Chief of Staff, Honorable Frema Osei Opare, over the weekend. The statement announcing the task force on retrieval of state assets did not make direct reference to officials of the immediate past National Democratic Congress NDC administration. But this followed the seizure of some cars belonging to the National Organiser of the NDC, Kofi Adams. An order was later given for the return of the seized vehicle to him. The National Security Minister, Kan-Dapaah, is reported to have apologized to the NDC National Organiser for the unfortunate incidents. The agencies represented on this task force are the Ghana Police Service, the Ghana Revenue Authority, that is the Customs Division, the Bureau of National Investigations, that is the BNI, the Driver and Vehicle Licensing Authority, and the Office of the President. So we ask, how should handing over of state properties be done when there is a change of government, and why should state officials hesitant government continue to hold on to state property, and what at all is the role of the Administrator General in all of these? We'll also switch camp shortly and we will talk about the National Service. There have been issues concerning National Service. Now we hear that some people want to take a court action because they were supposedly on what I call it, they were unlawfully dismissed, or yeah, they were unlawfully dismissed. So we'll talk about those issues as well. In here, I still have Duke Tego with the Inside Newspaper. I have Alfred Hughes with Unique FM or Radio Ghana, a broadcast journalist here with Radio Production Division of GBC, and Elvis is here with the Inside Newspaper. Let's talk briefly about National Service. It has become a very important topic, especially during the vetting period. As a journalist, what is your take on it? Let me start with you, Alfred, because you just joined us.
I'm filled with fresh energy, I guess.
Yeah, sure.
Yes, well, the National Service has come under the media searchlight over the past months, so to speak, even before the year ended. The initial problem was you remember some kind of malfeasance that went on with regards to some financial impropriety, which led to the expulsion of some of its officers. Then, of course, later we heard the increase of the National Service allowance by 60% and so on. So the National Service has been one institution that has come under the media searchlight. But the newest news is the expulsion of some officers which according to information reaching us indicates that they were unlawfully or illegally, employed. 205 of them, if I'm right. Right. Initially, the news which was making the rounds was that these were national service personnel, until we got to know that they were not national service personnel, but indeed and in fact, they were people who had been employed. The question is, at which time were they employed? Did it actually go through the Public Service Commission? And did it get that kind of financial kind of green light from the Ministry of Finance? These are questions which have come up, and there have been a lot of accusations, counter accusations, and some of them rumors going on here and there. But some of the people who have been affected have also come out to indicate emphatically that they are going to seek legal redress. As to whether they have a case or not, the courts will tell. This will be my initial
reaction. But Duke, do we wait to employ people, over 200 of them, then finally we withdraw their services? Aren't we moving in for a legal tussle?
Between yesterday and this morning, I have been listening very closely to the two sides. The workers who have just been dismissed, and also the National Service, and all of them have been speaking from different angles. But what you gather is that sometime last year, in October, an advertisement was put out in the daily newspapers. It was in the Ghanaian Times, it was in the Daily Graphic, everywhere, that the National Service was preparing to employ some people to join the service. And therefore, they contracted one company, I think is it Teleco or something, Zomelo and Co, to, do the necessary interviewing and also the fine-tuning for the service. So these students went there, they went through the right procedures, they did whatever they had to do. And then many of them got letters, appointment letters, sometime in December, some in November last year, employing them into various areas within the National Service. Some have actually done voluntary services for the service for sometime 8 years. Some have done 5 years, and therefore were deemed, appropriate that if there was an opportunity, these people should be employed. So they went through the right procedures. You see, but I find it so disheartening. If you consider the effort these people have put into trying to help, restructure the National Service, they have done a lot of work. They have done voluntary services. And I want to suggest that we reconsider these issues once again. It will be very disheartening that for the negligence of either the service to make sure that the right procedures are put through before they are employed, this, very hard-working staff of the National Service will be dismissed or will be laid off. This is completely, uncalled for, and I think our sympathies should be with these workers who, from next month, will not be receiving salaries from the National Service office. But we shouldn't just limit this to the situation which we find ourselves in as National Service. It cuts across board. Our inability to put in place proper measures to ensure that the graduates who are graduating from our tertiary institutions, from our vocational institutions, are given some jobs, to do. And this is becoming a national catastrophe. Even when you have gone to the university and have acquired all the needed certificates, you still cannot, acquire jobs. And these numbers are growing in their thousands and in their millions.
Okay, so we'll come back to touch on the unemployment situation. Obviously, you will have your take, so don't worry. We are still here discussing varied issues that have happened on the media landscape. We'll go for a quick break. When we come back, we will continue with the program.
So in our day-to-day practice of journalism, we get the opportunity to write on a litany of issues ranging from politics, business, health, religion, and what have you. We seek to bring this experience onto one platform, the Reporters Roundtable. My name is Morris Ogbete. Watch the Reporters Roundtable on GBC24 every Thursday.
Right, it is the Reporters Roundtable. Okay, before we went on a break, Duke, you were entering into the terrain of unemployment, and I cut you halfway, but we'll come back to discuss those. Elvis, what would be your initial reaction to these national service hula baloo that it started from vetting, where if you haven't done national service, then you cannot be employed in public sector or the private sector. Now we have this issue at hand. What do you make of it?
Well, as journalists, issues break and we also follow it to be updated on what is happening. And for me, everything, if it's done legally, I don't see why anybody should be terminating anybody's appointment. So I try to find out what really is the reason for the termination of appointment. And it came yesterday, one television station did a program where they spoke to a deputy director of the National Service. Actually, he was in the studio with the person, and they spoke to Dr. Kwasa White, who was the immediate past executive director. And it was clear that at a point in time, the process of recruitment, there was a letter from the Public Services Commission directing the National Service to halt the processes they were engaged in. And when it was put to Dr. Kwasa White yesterday on the TV, his response was that at that time, they were far into the process of recruiting the people. And they already engaged the external recruitment firm and they have worked to a certain point. And that was the reason they couldn't stop the process and they went ahead to appoint the people. So for the current executive who are asking these people to go home, their point was that, and listening to the deputy director who was on TV yesterday, the reason they asked them to go was that the letter from the Public Service Commission, which is the authority from which National Service need to seek permission before employing those people. The letter directed National Service to stop the processes at that point for this and wait for directives from the Public Service Commission. But the previous administration went ahead and to recruit these people. So they think that once the institution doesn't need to grant the permission, which the Public Service Commission says the process should be stopped, there was no way that the previous should have gone ahead and recruit the people. And so on that basis, they are asking that all those recruitments be revoked. If that is the case, and it is true that the public service should guarantee the recruitment, if it is really true that the public asked that the process be stopped and it did not stop, then there are issues of legalities over there. So then, as some have already said that they are prepared to go to court, I hope when all the facts come out and they are able to go to court, we will know. If they also get to know, because the person recruited might not know that the Public Service Commission had directed that he should not be recruited. So the people who are being asked to go home now, I sympathize with them because it is not their fault. If it is true that the institution that can give permission say don't do it and they went ahead, me being recruited, I wouldn't know. It is only the directors and management of National Service that will know that they are not supposed to recruit me. So for me, especially those who have been working somewhere and have even left their jobs because they may see the national service job as more lucrative or better, or in terms of aspiration of career development is better for them, I sympathize with them because it's not their fault. They saw an advert, they applied, and they were recruited. But if it is also true that the Public Service Commission ordered that the thing should be stopped and then they didn't stop, then that one too, there's a problem because we cannot be breaking laws to do things like that. So I hope that we can get to the bottom of these things and make sure. But unfortunately, some people have to be casualties, which is a very bad thing to do. And then secondly, the issue of whether compulsory national service and all that issue, I think that it's becoming more confusing because you listen to several lawyers who have read the act and everybody gives his own interpretation as to what it thinks it has to be done. Some say it's supposed to be 2 years and they have reduced to 1 year, so it's no longer legal. Some said even within the 2 years you are supposed to do 6 months compulsory military service, which is no longer the case. So it means that even those of us who have done national service but didn't do the military service, it means that our certificates are not even valid. So then I ask myself, why can we have a law and we know what the law states, and as a nation we veered away from it and we are doing something else? until it becomes to a ministerial vetting and becomes an issue before all these issues are being raised. And I think that it's just an eye-opener for us as a nation to know that, okay, let's look at the act again. If we think that the time it was promulgated, we needed military service, but today probably we don't need it, and therefore let's change it and do something else. I think it's about time, as a country, we will take a second look at the National Service Act and tune it to fit the current circumstances, so that all these brouhaha and things about it will no longer be an issue in the future. So I think that it's important as a nation we take a critical look at that. And I hear some MPs trying to challenge what approval of Otiko Jaba. I pray that he can go to court and we can get the outcome. Yeah, MP for Shaman, so that we can get the outcome.
I think
from
for
the
that
court
it is clear. Once
there's
the simple majority.
No, it's not about the simple. He's saying that since Otiko didn't do national service, he shouldn't be qualified for a public office. That's so on that ground he wants to go to court.
Wants to test
and
the law.
I think that if he's able to test the law, to help all of us, so that there will be clarity on this issue as to whether you can only be employed when you've done national service. And to send a clear signal to all Ghanaians that if you have not done national service, don't look out for any appointment in the public service in the future. I think even the law, it's even private employers are supposed to ensure that you've done your national service before you are employed. And in many other countries, even if you don't do it, if you apply for further studies, you need to add your national service certificate to prove that indeed you have done national before you even be given the chance to even go to any university to do further studies. So if we want to go that way, then it's about time that we put some of these things in place. So I hope that the MP can take this issue to court. If he's able to do it and the court makes a pronouncement, then we know that this is the direction that it should go. But the truth of the matter is that today you and I know, whether private or public sector, hundreds and thousands are working who have done national service, because you go for employment, nobody asks you for your national service certificate. Once you can do the job, they give you the job to do it. So if it has to be a compulsory thing in this country, probably the court may pronounce and it becomes law and we all understand. So I hope something like that can happen.
Right, Duke, I know you want to come here. I'll invite you into the conversation soon. But Alfred Hughes, talk of once you can do the job, should we worry so much about the national service bit being the criterion for admitting people into, be it public service or private service, or we should concentrate more on delivery of the person? Because sometimes there are people who have done national service, but when you come to the job front, the people can't deliver. So is delivery are we looking at the person who can deliver on the job, or we should focus on the law as it is and go by it?
Well, I would have wanted you to ask whether we can actually overlook a very critical constitutional provision, which of course is a parliamentary act that was promulgated in 1973, and try to do what we want to do irrespective of the fact that the law specifically directs us to do our national service before taking up any public service. You see, issues of law and legality and constitutionality are very, very, very important, and you should not joke with it. When the Honorable Nogbe of Ashiama threatened was going to take, Otiko Afisa, Jaba to court, she did not actually speak with a political tone. He also indicated that during the time of the vetting of DVLA, that particular law was also flouted, so that at least when there is some kind of controversy that involves the executive and the legislature, then of course we have to go to the court of law to really actually resolve the issue, so that after resolving the issue, as far as the constitutionality is concerned, then of course everybody will be clear in the mind as to whether it is compulsory or doing national service a prerequisite to working either in the private firm or in the public firm. But then I would like to indicate and emphasize the fact that there are certain corporate organizations like the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, which is very, very, very serious when it comes to issues about national service, whether we've done it or not. Other corporate organizations may overlook it, but I think it is very, very important. If we think it is not necessary, as a country, we can just expunge that part of the Parliamentary Act that was promulgated sometime in 1973, and said that it is not a prerequisite for working in the public service or not. And let's concentrate on the capabilities, the abilities of the individual, whether the person is able to deliver or not. Yes, I agree with you. There are people who, for one way or the other, stayed outside the country because their parents were there, or schooled outside the country. In the case of the MP for Evale Jura, what's the name? Patron, who also said the parents stayed in Kenya. And as a matter of fact, she didn't have the opportunity to do the national service. I mean, so she came in, I think she's asking for a waiver, just like Otiko did and Otible's did. I mean, let's try to, let the courts decide on the way forward. I mean, it's becoming too murky and it's becoming too controversial. You know, politicians are making this thing very partisan because it happened to Otible's and it was passed. The MPP, using its majority power in Parliament, also feels that once, they are, what they call it, Otiko is also on the part of the ruling government, then of course they should also use their muscles politically to really ensure that she also goes through what they have gone through. But then, that's why the courts are there. Let's go and test and see which one it is, so that at least all of us can rest.
But as people who try to inform how policy decisions are made, devoid of any political tax and all of that, national service should be something that should be encouraged. Should we paint the ordinary Ghanaian with a different brush and the politician with a different brush when it comes to national service? But before we'll come to that, but I understand we have on the line the Deputy Executive Director of the National Service Scheme, Nana Boache, to get a clearer understanding of the issues. Hello, Nana.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Nana, how are you doing?
Not too bad, by His grace, everything is okay.
Right. Could you please explain to us the issues as it pertains? Why the need to withdraw the appointment of the over 200 people that is currently in the media?
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, first of all, let me say that there have been clear violation of the 1992 Constitution. That is Article 196, regarding the mandate of the Public Services Commission. They are a supervisory body and also a regulatory body. Then also there have also been breaches of the Public Services Commission Act. When you, I bet your mind to Section 4 Cabinet, and also breaches of due process. Now, February last year, we had an approval for the Public Services. Hello, can you hear me? Hello? Hello?
Hello, Nana, we are here.
Hello?
Yes, Nana, I can hear you loud and clear. Nana Boache. Hello, Nana. I guess we lost Nana, but we'll try to get in touch with him again. I was on the issue of letting either side of the political divide maybe have their way because of the issues. Yes, the issues you raised. Should it be the case? Because other than that, aren't we setting a wrong precedence that, okay, fine, when it comes to the politician, okay, you can have your way because maybe the NDC government had its way. Now, okay, I think Nana is back on the line. Hello, Nana.
Hello.
Yeah, you were giving us some information. Could you please continue with that?
I was saying last year, February 19th specifically, we had approval from the Public Services Commission to recruit 34 permanent staff. And usually that come up as a result of some staff resignation, some also going on retirement, and then some also dying. And then also on the 2nd of June, we also had another approval from the Public Services Commission to also recruit 174.
Wow, I guess our lines aren't helping us at all. Okay, but at least we got it from Nana that in February they had the go-ahead to recruit 34, and in June they also 174. So I think Alfred Hughes is here. He is the teacher on the set. So please do a quick calculation for us. 174 plus 34. We have 8. We have 10, 0, 208. So yeah, 208.
Okay. But what has been banded around is 205.
Yeah, but
I've also
from
seen
what
208. I've seen 208.
You've seen 208. Okay.
Yeah.
And I think from the horses Omar, then 208 is what we should go by.
I hope you can come back on the line and give us
I
reasons for the termination.
Some very important information.
Because you see, it is not enough for him to talk about 174.
I hear Nana is back. Nana.
Hello.
Nana, please, we had your initial reaction where you told us there were some 34 and 174. Could you please continue from there?
Yeah, so what I was saying, yes, we got approval from the Public Services Commission, and then also, after these approvals, you also need to seek financial clearance in the Ministry of Finance.
Okay.
That process were also executed. Now, then, after we go to the recruitment process, the then acting executive director called, how do I put it? The then executive director called an emergency meeting and then said they are outsourcing the entire recruitment process to a private consultant, that is Zomelo and Associates, at the cost of 100,000 Ghana cedis. And this cost was to be billed on the National Service Secretariat. Now, the senior most staff here, who is also the Director of Administration, critiqued the Public Services Commission because, one, he saw that there were irregularities and there were breaches of due process. Because all these were from his records from 1989. They have always recruited their internal staff internally because they have an HR department and the HR and Administration department. Then he petitioned the Public Services Commission, and the Public Services Commission wrote back to the acting executive director then, and then directed him to halt the process, to suspend the entire process. The deputy acting executive director wrote back, stating that they have timeline, they are working with timelines, and that the financial clearance the financial clearance, they are supposed to finish the recruitment by 31st October or so. Again, there was another petition that was sent to the Public Services Commission. And this, on the second petition, it came from the volunteer workers, national service personnel, and then workers who were in acting position. Now, because usually when you are recruiting, you need to give them the priority. You need to give them a preferential treatment. So after you have exhausted them, then you can look outside. What they are saying is that they even applied, but they were not even considered at all. They were not even called for an interview. So they petitioned the board refused to give them a hearing, and then they further petitioned the Public Services Commission. And again, on 2nd December, Dr. Prosakwaite was directed again to halt the process. Again, this directive was flouted. And then on the 15th of December, appointment letters were issued out to these individuals, that is 205 people.
Nana, if we will go by what you've given us, then you've given us 208. But you carry on.
No. So what I'm saying is that usually when you get approval, it is you can get approval for a certain number, but then you can do the recruitment processes for a certain number. So
all right, okay.
We are dealing with 205 now. But approvals were 34 and 173.
Okay.
But then I'm talking about those they interviewed and then those they issued out appointment letters to. They are 205. So from the 205, the matter was still before the Public Services Commission. And then by which time Dr. Prosakwaite was no more in office because he was in an active position. And then during the transition process, he had exited. So the management of the National Service Scheme, in conjunction with the regional directors, requested from these individuals to bring back the appointment letters pending the outcome of the investigations before the Public Service Commission. Now, the new directive, or if I should put the decision is that because the entire process was clouded in irregularities and then violation of the 1982 Constitution and then violation of the Public Services Commissions Act, also clear breaches of due process, the appointment is null and void. fresh process will begin, and these people will have the opportunity again to reapply. So that is the decision.
Right. I have some journalists in here. They want to pose a follow-up question to you, if you don't mind.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Nana Boachi, has the $100,000 been paid?
I can't hear you very well.
Okay, you.
Yeah. Has the $100,000 Ghana cedi been paid to Zomelo and Associates? I would like to know.
Duke Tego is of the Inside newspaper. He wants to find out whether the amount due for Zomelo and Co has been given out to them.
So the scheme already paid 50,000 Ghana cedis to them. So there's an astounding 50 Ghana cedis that is supposed to be paid to them.
All right. Okay. But Nana, what becomes of the corporate image or the corporate governance of the National Service now? Because I am tempted as an ordinary person, a layman outside, would believe that then if a chief executive is taking some steps, it has to be in conjunction with the other directors. Isn't that the case?
I am one of the directors, or I'm a deputy director.
Yes, I know.
Oh, yeah, you are making reference to the board.
Yes, the corporate governance or the corporate image of the, because if things of this sort should come up, then there's a banter to the former executive director. Then what does it say about the National Service as a body?
Unless I'm not appreciating your question, but for me, I think it is even part of corporate governance that you follow due process, that you make sure you desist from violation of the law, that you make sure that you consult. Because you see, the public, when you read Article 196, it's very clear that the Public Services Commission has supervisory and regulatory jurisdiction over anybody at all that intends to recruit anybody into the public service. That is their mandate. And that mandate is captured very well, clearly, and is assent under the 1992 Constitution. And when you also read the Enabling Act of the Public Services Commission, it is also stipulated clearly from Section 4 coming. So it is really part of corporate governance to make sure that you go by the law. So for me, I think this decision rather enhances the corporate governance image of the scheme.
Right. Then a follow-up question from one of our journalists, Alfred Hughes.
Nana B. Yeah. Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah. May you state specifically the reasons why the Public Service Commission directed that the processes for recruitment should be halted?
Come again.
May I know why the Public Service, in its wisdom, instructed that the recruitment process should be halted by the National Service?
Okay, yeah, I think I just said it, because they said that because of a petition. There were two petitions before them. One was sent by the Director of Administration, the person of Reverend Simon Peter Kan-Dapaah, and then one also was a group petition from the volunteers, the National Service personnel, and then the employees who were just acting. They felt that they were supposed to be given some preferential, treatment in this regard, but then their application never saw the light of day because they were not even called. So the Public Services Act wrote back to the acting executive director then that they should halt the process, suspend the process until the outcome of these petitions. But those directives were flouted.
Okay, Nana, I think we'll leave it there. But before you go, let me find out from you. Is the National Service hoping to amend its act following the reports that we have from the vetting committee?
That's a good question. In fact, that process has already started. I know sooner or later there will be amendment, because for me, I also believe that the National Service Act was passed some 37 years ago. And obviously, considering the prevailing times and even our educational setup, a lot has changed. In fact, even when you read the Act, it talks about 2 years mandatory service, 6 months of it should be a military training. But then because of the arrangement, the dictation arrangement, you realize that now we don't have A-level, because usually after A-level you do 1 year, and then after tertiary education you also do 1 year, but then you don't have that arrangement. So clearly when you read the Act, you realize that a lot of amendment must go into it. And that process has already started. We are hoping and praying that Parliament will demonstrate. But I mean, because of how national service issue has become very topical of it, I'm very, very sure, very, very, very certain that Parliament will favorably look at amending the National Service Act.
All right. Duke wants to find out from you why Dr. Kpesa White is not being prosecuted following the directive or for flouting the directive.
Frankly speaking, further investigations are going on. Okay. And for me, if some financial laws have been caused to the state, obviously it is not for me to say. We have an Attorney General, we have a CID department, we have BNI. I'm sure, because this matter is still under investigation. And if he's found culpable or violating any law, I'm very sure that he can be held before these bodies, and then they can further interrogate him. And then if he gets before the law court, I'm very sure the capable agencies would further do that.
But what is the structure of the investigation team?
No, that is what I'm trying to say, that it is before the Public Service Commission. That is what they are saying. If their full report comes out, and then indeed he has done something that is criminal, if I should put it. It is not for me to determine the criminality of actions. Yes. But then if it comes out that he's done something that he is criminally liable, and then they want to prosecute him for it, that will not lie within my remit, and that will lie within the Attorney General's remit. And we are not there yet, if I should put it. For now, those appointments have been terminated.
All right, Nana B, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Great. That was Nana Boakye. He is the Deputy Executive Director of the National Service Scheme. I think Nana B has said it all. So we'll go for a quick break and come back to tackle our final topic.
So in our day-to-day practice of journalism, we get the opportunity to write on a litany of issues ranging from politics, business, health, religion, and what have you. We seek to bring this experience onto one platform, the Reporters Roundtable. My name is Morris Ogbete. Watch the Reporters Roundtable on GBC24 every Thursday.
My name is Rebecca Ewa. Keep watching the Reporters Roundtable on GBC24 this and every other Thursday.
Right, welcome back to the Reporters Roundtable. We're still in here discussing 3 crucial matters that have happened on the media landscape over the week. And earlier, we spoke about the impact the second-hand clothing business is having on our Ghanaian identity. We came back to touch on national service and how important it has become during this time. Now we will shift attention quickly to the retrieval of state assets. And that has come up very strongly. And presently, we understand that the presidency has revealed that there has been some 208 cars that has not been accounted for, and this is by the Director of Communications at the Presidency, Eugene Arhin. We also know that earlier there was a statement that was issued by the Chief of Staff, Honorable Frema Osei Opare, in connection to retrieving these state assets and following the seizure of some cars of the National Organiser of the NDC. So let's touch briefly on it. Elvis, what does this tell us about our maintenance culture, our documentation, and all of that? As a state, should we wait for a task force to be set up for us to know where our properties are?
For me, I don't think that there was the need for the task force. We have an investigative body like the BNI, the National Security, and those. They do their work. If they need to go to DVLA or whatever to seek for information, they could have done it. So for me, I think the task force, even though it has brought some limit onto the sporadic going around by MPP, perceived MPP supporters to go to different places. Since the task force was, and now you realize that there is some reduction in the system, that okay, now there's a particular group to do that. But I've been thinking and I've been searching for this issue once it came up. I'm like, if there's a list at the presidency and vehicles are missing, why don't we have people to look for? And I realized that in the year 2009, when President Most also came to office, there was the same thing that we were told
Elvis,
in the
not
country.
to catch you, but I'm told that we have someone on the line. I think the Administrator General, David Yarrow. Hello, David.
Yes, please.
Welcome to the Reporters Roundtable.
Thank you.
Right, we're talking about the retrieval of state assets. Could you tell us, how does the Administrator General coordinate the assets or state assets?
Well, it's a simple thing. We coordinate, if you look at the mandate of the Administrator General, we are supposed to build a database of all government assets and properties. So the way we coordinate, we have two ways. We write to the institutions to give us the vehicle and whatever holdings, which we update our decision. Then also another way was to use the handover notes, where they are all supposed to declare whatever their holdings are or the assets are. And then from there, we were able to extract the information to build the database. And then in a few occasions, like the buildings, we have done a physical inspection where we had to sign off certain ministers. So basically, this was how we coordinated and came up with our data.
But has the data been built already, or?
Yeah, the data is a continuous process. Okay. As I was saying the other day to a friend that in the wisdom of the framers of the transition law, we said that the transition team is ad hoc. It comes as soon as they are able to inaugurate the new president office, then they disband. But the office of the Administrator General continues because government does purchases. Procurement of government properties and assets goes on almost on daily basis. So our duty is to keep on updating whatever we have. Like right now, we have worked out for 2016 what we had, and these have been reflected in the annual notes and have been given to the incoming minister to help them to work. Then in 2020, we would have updated all this, and this will reflect again in the handover news of 2020 and to be given to the another incoming government.
All right, so with the issues on the media landscape now concerning some 200 vehicles that are missing at the presidency and all of that, do you have a data or do you have a list of all those assets of the state?
Yes, as I said, yes, we have all the ministries, department agencies, including the Office of the President, were requested to indicate all this in their handover notes. So right now we have a list of all the vehicles that were sent to us from the presidency. We have that list.
All right, so have you been in contact with such people so that we can retrieve them as quickly as practicable?
No, it is not the duty of the Office of the Administration to be in touch with them. Our duty basically is to build a database and then to help the ministries and agencies which own those properties. And one of the ways that we did was, as I said, we made sure that all these are captured in the handover notes and which have been given to the various ministers and everybody. So if you are a minister of state and you have taken office, the handover notice will now guide you to look at and see whatever assets and properties are supposed to be at your ministry. If you go through and you see that there is a discrepancy, then you will now have to find out where it is. In fact, normally the handover notice, they also indicate who is the user agency or who person is using them, and the state of the vehicle and all those things. So when you look at the handover notice and a vehicle is not there, you go to who you are supposed to be using it. You see the name or the area where within the ministry where it is supposed to be located, and you can trace it. So it is the responsibility of the ministry, in this case, the responsibility of the office of the president to chase and retrieve their properties. We do, as I said, we just build
the data for them to rely on.
So yes, so if you now want other information like you think it is not in the handover note, any other information, then you can revert to us and we will assist. Otherwise, the handover notes are so comprehensive that you can easily trace and recover your properties.
All right, Duke has a question for you, Duke.
Yes, Yaro, does government actually inform you of the assets that are in their possession, or you have a way of finding out newly acquired assets by government? What role do you play before such assets are acquired? Or you only sit and wait for them to present you with a list of what they have?
Yes, from now until the law is amended, this is what we can do. And then, as I said, my office, I said it somewhere that my office too is planning to get a software that can link us to all the MMDAs, so that anytime they do any purchases, it will reflect and we update. But until we have this, we are relying on the information that they will give us. And to let it be as authentic as possible, we have insisted that the ministers of state, as at the time they prepare the handover notes, should personally sign them, saying that yes, what I'm signing this document to certify that what has been declared is what is on the ground. Yeah, you see, the problem is that even though we are in charge, we don't do procurement for the ministries. Every ministry has a law allowing it to do procurement. And so, and at that moment, we are trying to seek permission from the office of the president to direct the ministry that anytime they do procurement, they should at least give us a copy of the letter or information about the type of procurement they do for us to update our records. Otherwise, right now, we are just relying on the integrity of the informant who gave us.
That is a challenge.
This is serious.
That is a real challenge, Yaro. But until they give you the procurement that they have made or something, isn't there a way that you can also follow up to them to get it?
There's no other way, because if I go to any ministry and I say that, for example, the law doesn't give me even the power to just walk to any ministry and say, bring your this in. I could go to say that, bring your inventory list, and I'll look at it. Yeah, at their discretion, they could give it to me or not, because there's no law binding them to give. But even if they give the inventory list and somebody wants to do mischief, that whatever they are hiding will not appear in the inventory list. So I will just look at the inventory list and say, I'm satisfied, and then I'll go away. So if I hear that, or if I have suspicion that this ministry has 10 vehicles and they have declared 8, and I go and say, okay, your handover notice, you have only 8 vehicles, but I suspect that you have 10. So how am I going to satisfy? Then I'll say, bring your papers, procurement papers and other things. But because they already want to do this, they only give me papers covering 8 vehicles. So there's no way that I can know that there are 10 instead of 8.
Wow. Right, but
so that is the big challenge,
But Yaro, what aspect of the law would you want to be amended or reviewed so that it can give you the powers so you can perform your duties to the letter?
Yeah, one, if you look at the law, I am not a member of the transition team at all. So I have no, when they are talking about the transition arrangement, I have no locus there. So one, the amendment should be made in such a way that Ambassador General should be a member of the transition team. So I can sit in the transition meetings and everything to know, because I'm supposed to give the administrative and technical advice to our staff. That's one. Two, there's going to be the sanction.
Yeah, will you please reposition yourself? Your line is breaking.
You give wrong information. We should be able to bring sanctions to bear on you so that you yourself, when you are given the information, you have at the back of your mind that sanctions. If I joke, the sanctions will be dealt with me. Then we also need powers of enforcement. Say that I can now go and say that, look, I want this information from you. And the law backs me to get it. You can't say that you will give it to me at your discretion or you won't give it to me at all. So these are some of the petty things that we want the law to be looked at again. For example, somebody the other time was suspecting that the office of the president had met the law. The law says that within 30 days before the election, my office should be given the handing over notes so that I will now sit in readiness for the president-elect. And when the president-elect is known, then I will go and present those things to him, to start work. And unfortunately, this wasn't done 30 days before elections, even until the transition team was inaugurated. The handover notes were not ready. You see, meanwhile, somebody else here, it was the one Cocoa Food, Bantama, former MP, he went on air to say that he suspected that the handover notes had been given to me and I had given them back to the ministers and department to Dr. I said, I have no interest in that. Why should I give it to them, to Dr. But in actual fact, they were not given to me at all. Okay. So if we had sanctions, the officer in charge would have made sure that all the ministers met that. Even the ministers themselves will know that, look, I am supposed to submit my handover notes to the office of the president before this time, and then the office of the president will give them to the administrator general. So the ministers, and if I don't do that, there will be sanctions. This and this and this will happen to me. So the ministers themselves will sit up. But here was because there are no sanctions, there's laxity, and the former president office, they took their time and prepared the 100 notes at the time they wanted. So if you have been following, you will realize that the first meeting of the transition team, only 8 handover notes were ready. Then the second meeting, I think 21. Before finally the third meeting, all the 41 were brought. So there's a need to a regime of sanctions will help.
All right, a quick follow-up from one of my panel members here.
Mr. David Yarrow, I really sympathize with your situation. But beyond that, is not there a way of authenticating the figures that the various parts of the transition team can give you by actually physically taking an inventory of the number of cars at the Flagstaff House, for instance?
Yes, actually, every minister of state is supposed to take a physical inventory of the assets and properties in his ministry. That is why we made the handbook so comprehensive.
No, I mean your outfit. I mean your outfit.
Yes.
Beyond authenticating the figures that you have, that you feed into your database, do you have the powers to say, go physically to the Flagstaff House and take inventory of number of cars and compare it to the figures that you have?
Well, I don't have that power at all, but for the purposes of updating my records, yes, I can go there. But as I said, it won't make any difference because what I've been given in the handover notes are what are supposed to be there.
So if you go and say something else, you can't ask
there
questions.
to physically do this thing will not solve the problem. No. It is the beneficiary institution it is a property of the administrative institution. They are now to go and physically take inventory and ascertain this. What they will do is that if they want any other extra information about the type of vehicle or something, we have. But incidentally, all this have been spelled out in the handover notes. So I don't have a business to go physically counting them.
At this stage, would you describe your outfit as a paper tiger that can bark but can never bite?
Yeah, as I said, until the law is amended, that is exactly the situation. Okay. Because if you don't abide by the tenets of the law, there's nothing that can be done. No, you go scot-free. No, nobody can do anything. Like these vehicles that have been taken, if the handover note shows that these vehicles should be there, and the research agency goes to see that it's not there, and the law should be able to spell out, is it the Administrator General who is now to send the fellow to court to retrieve it, or the user agency, or who? All these things is blank. So, I would say that yes, we are just toothless bulldogs here. But I'm not surprised because, as I said, this is the first time that this law is being challenged, actually, because the law hasn't had any. It was passed in 2012, and 2012 NDC won, and so the law wasn't tested. And at that time, even my office, even at that now, we had just 4 officers who are doing routine business. So the transition team, when they worked in 2012, my office was not directly involved.
All right.
So yeah, it is now that we are testing the lesson of the law,
the strength of the law to see how far it goes.
Yes.
All right. Yaro, thank you very much for that insightful bit. Yeah. Right. So we've been speaking to the Administrator General, David Yaro. That is a serious one that Yaro made.
In fact, it is not only shameful, but it is shameless as a country. I mean,
I'll come back to you, please.
We always have talked about the building of institutions, and we make reference to Obama's statement, though those statements were made by some African leaders, including Oscar Ankomah, years back, but they were not exactly the same words, that we need to strengthen our institutions. And this is a very classic case of the lack of institutional strengthening. And as I sit here, I bow down my head in shame, and I really pity and sympathize with Mr. David Yaro for setting him up and asking him to head such a very important institution and not giving him the kind of legal tools to work with. I mean, it's a very big, and it's very ridiculous as well.
Elvis, earlier you were making
I'm making a point that as a country, these are the way we lose our resources and the country remain poor. When this year I decided to look at what has been past history. 2009, President Mo came to office. The report, when you Google government to probe missing 757 cars, it's on the internet. It is Chronicle newspaper that published that story. That by July, President Mo's government had identified that there were 757 cars that belongs to the state and motorbikes that should have been given to the state that they could not find. And if you look at the make of the cars, as we speak, this is 8th year NDC is gone. We've not heard whether the government had actually found these cars. How many of them have been found, where they are, or if none has been found, what measures have been pushed in place to make that this does not happen again? We do not know. So if we can lose 757 cars in 2009, and we sit down and today we are being told that over 500 cars are missing, and 200 alone are from the Flagstaff House, it tells you that as a country we are not going anywhere, because one V8 is $100,000. So if
and the interesting thing about all this is that about 30% of these government vehicles are said not to have been registered at all.
Yes, because that's the same. So you see, when we can't build institutions, if we are not ready to protect the public purse, and this is the way we do things so that individuals can steal state resources and send it home, it's a problem. Because it's not happening because of only NDC. 2009 that we are talking about, it was the MPP which was in power before President Mo came. So these 757 cars we are talking about are Chronicle into a public. that the then administration alleged that were missing means that they were missing under an NPP government. So NDC sat in power for 8 years and did nothing about this because there was no any other publication or any information from the past government about this. And now they are gone and we are being told that this number of vehicles are missing. As an ordinary person or a journalist, my conclusion is that okay, the politicians know what they are doing. So they will not put in the right measures to make sure that it doesn't happen so that they can benefit from it. That is the way I can conclude. 557 cars missing, state cars. One V8 is $100,000 today. So can you imagine the amount of revenue, money that had gone waste?
But Duke, how do we tackle these issues moving forward so that it wouldn't be like a political witch hunting?
You see, I think that very often our politicians commit crimes for which they go unpunished. And that is why there is beginning to be a certain sense of normalcy. But I can also remember that only some years ago, somebody was caught and shot for going to the bank to take a loan legally. He was caught and shot because then we believed that he was exploiting workers. We believed that that act of going to take someone's money to do your own business was wrong. How come that from that high, we have now descended so low that government officials can actually purchase, you know, assets of this nature? And we're talking about thousands of dollars. Millions of dollars are going into the purchase of this, you know, assets, and we can't find them. I believe very strongly that the time has come for the Ghanaian people to begin to scrutinize our politicians and our government. You see, we believe that the Administrator General, for instance, will do our job for us. But from what we are hearing today, it is a very frightening scenario that the Administrator General only receives information from the very people who are supposed to be doing some of these things. And he mentions a word that he only acts with them based on integrity. How sure are we that we are really receiving the integrity that these politicians we require of them? And I must state here and now that Nana Akufo-Addo, having gotten the mandate of the Ghanaian people in the way and manner in which it occurred, has a responsibility to make sure that we put in place proper measures to bring a halt to these. It is very good for us to set up a task force so that hidden or stolen assets of the state are recovered. But I had problems with the way and manner in which it was done by individuals. Some say they are invisible forces running to people's homes and going to, you know, grab these things. But this will happen because the Administrator General himself hasn't got the means exactly to retrieve these things. And at some point, you listen to the news and you ask if Ghana was a banana republic. Why must this happen? And look at the number of vehicles we are talking about. There are some teachers who are working in Jabilajo, Yankanzia, somewhere also in Walewale, and they walk miles and miles to school. They are headmasters who don't have sleeping places in their own communities. So how come that we are wasting resources in this manner? These things must come to an end. Or very soon, Ghanaians are going to march into the streets and demand accountability of our politicians.
Great.
Yeah.
Alfred.
Yeah. It shows how our civil society organizations are so weak. You understand me? I believe that it is not as if there are no laws in the country, but it's because the civil society organizations are so weak and do not actually pressurize, to ensure that politicians actually enact and promulgate the right laws for its implementation and execution, final execution. People will definitely take advantage of the situation. You see, the difference between Africa and Ghana, to be specific, is that as compared to some of the westernized European countries, is that it's not as if the whites have got a superior brain than Africans or Ghanaians, to be specific. There are also criminals there, but because, I mean, administrative procedures, laws are actually made to guard and direct the way things should be executed and implemented. That is why most of the times you don't find some of these things going ahead. I don't want to sound cynical, but I have a feeling that the Yaro's institution has purportedly been made weak to allow some, disingenuous, politicians to do. Otherwise, why should these things happen? You understand me? I do not want to go ahead, become so emotional and passionate to say that our politicians are criminals. You understand me? But then you see, some people have overlooked the promulgation and execution of very relevant laws that will ensure that some of these things end. Because there's a lack of existence of such relevant laws, that's why people are either laxed or actually taking advantage of the situation. And it's high time civil society, like Occupy Ghana and your boss's group,
Committee for Joint Action.
They've gone so mute.
Joint
Action.
Committee for Joint Action.
Yes, CJA should stand up. You understand me? They've been so long in their slumber. They should resurrect, stand up, and make sure that we actually make politicians do the right things, so that somebody in Zabju Tatale, who is so brilliant and intelligent, will not come down to the south to look for jobs which are non-existent and engage in Kayaye and Kayayo. We understand we need to set up as Ghanaians, and we as media men should trumpet some of these things to awaken the politicians who have been in a long slumber.
Right. This one says, Becky, this is very insightful and an interesting program. Keep it up. From Reverend Echampon of Blue Cross. Thank you, Reverend. This one says, please, why do we need to pay? Wow. This is what former President Obama said. We need to build strong institutions. From Lillian Ganiyu. I hope I mentioned the name right. Ganiyu. Okay, from La Paz. Thank you, Lillian. This one says, this national service has to stop if its purpose is unattainable. I guess he's reacting to the earlier discussion. Some national service persons who are willing to render their service to the nation. Simple. The law is so relaxed, it has to be revamped. This is from Boating in Mataheko. Boating, thank you. Why does one have to do national service before being offered a substantiate job? It is to make one competent for any job one takes in future, or the more. Oh, please stop calling the line. It's a WhatsApp line. You're not supposed to be calling. That one, the earlier message is from Moses Agbe. And this has been the Reporters Roundtable. I've been in here with Duke Tego of the Insight newspaper. Alfred Hughes is with the radio, is a journalist. A broadcast journalist. And he wants to be referred to as a broadcast journalist with the radio division here in GBC. And Elvis Dako is with the Finder newspaper. My name is Rebecca Ewa. The show was produced by Phyllis Kofi, Max Esu, and Celestine Avi. We are out.
Reported on leading media outlets across the world. A lively panel of journalists with comprehensive knowledge in all fields of endeavor, be it politics, health, business, sports, entertainment, information, communication technology, gender, law, international affairs and diplomacy, and a host of others will objectively dissect the matter of contention. On Reporters Roundtable, fairness, objectivity, factuality, and non-partisanship is our hallmark. It's the Double RT Show with Rebecca Ewa. This and every other Thursday from 10 to 12 GMT. Make a date with us. The Reporters Roundtable, all angles, all sides.